Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. Chinese authorities have urged people to stop travelling in and out of Wuhan, the city at the centre of a new virus outbreak that has killed 9 people. Those living in the city of 8.9 million people have also been told to avoid crowds and minimise public gatherings. So far, at least 9 people have died from the new virus, which has spread from Wuhan to several Chinese provinces, as well as the US, Thailand and South Korea. There are 440 confirmed cases, with the origin a seafood market that conducted illegal transactions of wild animals. China earlier this week confirmed that human-to-human transmission of the virus had taken place.
It's a big challenge to the Chinese authorities, and it couldn't really have come at a worse time for them, because there's a mass migration in China. It's the biggest human migration on Earth, the Chinese Lunar New Year.
Russian-led airstrikes killed at least 18 people in northwest Syria, where a major government offensive to clear out rebels has sent tens of thousands of people fleeing toward the border with Turkey. They said victims included a family of 8 with 6 children who were killed in the rural village of Kafar Tal, west of government-controlled Aleppo. Video released by the civil defence group known as the White Helmets showed the injured being treated in an ambulance. At least 8 other civilians were killed in other strikes by Russian and Syrian government warplanes on rural opposition areas that have been hit hard since the Russian-led military campaign began in December. Saudi Arabia has denied that its crown prince was responsible for hacking Amazon boss Jeff Bezos' phone. A message from a phone number used by the prince has been implicated in the data breach, according to reports. The kingdom's US embassy said these stories were absurd and had called for an investigation into them. It was previously claimed the alleged attack was linked to the murder of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. As well as being the founder of the online retail giant Amazon, Mr. Bezos also owns the Washington Post. Mr. Bezos' phone was hacked after receiving a WhatsApp message sent from Mohammed bin Salman's personal account, according to a UK newspaper. Venezuelan Secret Service agents have raided the offices of opposition leader Juan Guaido while he is on a visit to the UK. Footage showed hooded and armed officers from the Serbian service outside the building in Caracas. Opposition MPs said they had been prevented from entering the offices by Serbian agents. Mr. Guaido is recognised by more than 50 countries, including the UK and the US, as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. However, President Nicolas Maduro, who enjoys the support of the Venezuelan military, has managed to remain in power. Cowardly dictatorship, tweeted Mr. Guaido, who held talks with Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab in London. A top judge has been voted in by Greece's parliament as the first female president in the country's history. Katerina Sakel-Arapaoulo, with expertise in environmental and constitutional law, has been serving as president of the Council of State, another first for a woman. In a rare show of unity, the ruling Conservative Party nominee was backed by opposition parties, including the leftist Syriza Party, with 261 votes in the 300-seat parliament. Zimbabwe's junior doctors have agreed to return to work, ending a strike that has lasted for over 4 months after they accepted an offer from a Zimbabwean telecoms billionaire. UK-based Strive Masiawa will pay each doctor a subsistence allowance of about $300 and provide them with transport to work through a fund he set up. The strike was one of the longest in the country's history. The billionaire will fund the doctors for 6 months, and it's not clear what will happen after that. Canada's federal government has sent members of the army to Newfoundland in the Atlantic coast in the wake of a massive winter blizzard that buried cars and left thousands of people without power. The storm dumped as much as 30 inches of snow on St. John's, the capital of Newfoundland, and packed wind gusts as high as 130 kilometres per hour. Canadian troops were helping residents with snow removal and transportation as the country's eastern province recovers from last week's massive blizzard, prompting several towns to declare their first state of emergency in more than 3 decades. Thousands of residents still remain without power. And finally, lions and tigers have arrived in a South African wildlife sanctuary after they were rescued from Guatemala. The team from Animal Defenders International said the 21 big cats had endured years of severe confinement and maltreatment. It's after an 18-month campaign to enforce a 2018 ban on animals in circuses. Now 17 of the animals are recovering at an ADI sanctuary in South Africa, with the others being cared for in Florida.
Kind of damage that they've suffered in the circus, but without their claws and without their full teeth, they can't hunt. and so they can't feed themselves. So they can never go back into the wild. They need to be somewhere where they can be protected and cared for.
And that's your international news around the world in 5.